Hello dear learners and viewers, welcome to you all. Hope you are well. At the beginning of our session, I would like to recite few lines from a poem Nari by our national poet Kazi Nazrul Islam. এ বিশ্বের যা কিছু মহান সৃষ্টি চিরকল্যাণকর, অর্ধেক তার করিয়াছে নারী, অর্ধেক তার নর. In English, half of the great creations in the world that are eternally benevolent, half of them are made by women and the rest half of them are made by men. So dear learners, today I shall talk about women and their extraordinary achievements. And our today's topic is two women, and you will get it Unit 1, Lesson 3. Dear learners, this lesson is about two brave women, Valentina Tereskova and Kalpana Chawla, who stepped to the outer world. Valentina Tereskova was born in Central Russia. She is the first woman who traveled first woman in the history to travel in the space. And likewise, Kalpana Chawla, she is the first Indian woman who also traveled in the space, and both of them have created an unprecedented history. Now you see the picture of Valentina Tereskova and Kalpana Chawla. And today I shall talk about Valentina Tereskova. Okay, Valentina Tereskova. She was born in the village of Meslenikovo, Tudayevsky district in the central Russia. Tereskova's father was a tractor driver. That means if you compare, he is a farmer, and her mother worked in a textile plant. And now you can imagine that her mother worked in a garments factory. So she is from a very poor family. Okay, at the age of 8 in 1945, she went to school. That means she began her schooling, but left school in 1953 because of poverty, and continued her education through distance learning. For example, in our country, Open University, this university provides distance learning. She became interested in parachuting from a young age. That means she has a hobby, or she had a hobby during in her childhood. For example, you may have hobby, for example, gardening, but she had a hobby that is parachute jumping or skydiving, and she did it at the local aero club, and she made her first jump at the age of 22 on 21st May 1959. At that time, she was employed as a textile worker in a local factory. It was her expertise in skydiving that led her to select as a cosmonaut. Now you see here the picture of Yuri Gagarin. Who is Yuri Gagarin? Yuri Gagarin, the first human being to travel to outer space in 1961, and he is from Russia. And the Soviet Union decided to send a woman in space, and on 16 February 1962, proletariat, that means working class people, Valentina Tereskova was selected for this project. And now here you should remember that she was selected among more than 400 applicants. That means she was very expertise in skydiving. And when she was selected, she had to undergo a series of training that include, first one you see, isolation test. Now the question arises, what is isolation test? Isolation test is the process of breaking down the system into various modules so that defects can be spotted easily in isolation. Okay, then weightless flight. Weightless flight means flight in zero gravity. centrifuge test. She had to undergo centrifuge test. Now, what is centrifuge test and why it is done? Why is it done? It is done to observe the reactions and tolerance of the pilot or astronauts in Earth's gravity. Here you see centrifuge test. Then rocket theory, spacecraft engineering, and then she had to do 120 parachute jumping. You see parachute jumping. And again she had to take training, pilot training in MiG-15 UTI jet fighters. Here you see the picture of MiG-15 UTI jet fighters. Okay. And then, since the successful launch of the spacecraft Vostok 5, here you see the successful launch of Vostok 5, on 14th June 1963, Tereskova began preparing for her own flight. Here you see Tereskova began preparing for her own flight. And on the morning 16th June 1963, Tereskova and her backup cosmonaut Solovyovia were dressed in spacesuits and taken to the space shuttle launch pad by a bus. After completing her communication and her life support checks, she was sailed inside Vostok 6. Here you see, she was sailed inside Vostok 6. Then finishing a 2 hours countdown, Vostok 6 launched faultlessly. Although Tereskova experienced nausea and physical discomfort for much of the flight, she orbited. Here you see, this is Earth orbit. She orbited the Earth 40 times and spent almost 3 days in the space. Okay. With a single flight, she logged more flight time than the combined times of all American astronauts. Okay, then Tereskova also maintained a flight log and took photographs of the horizon. You see here the photographs of the horizon. And these pictures were really very significant because later on, based on the picture taken by Valentina Tereskova, the scientist used to identify aerosol layer within the atmosphere. You see here, this is aerosol layer. Okay. So, the photographs taken by Tereskova helps to identify aerosol layer in the atmosphere. Now you see Vostok 6 was the final Vostok flight and was launched 2 days after Vostok 5. This is very interesting. Okay, Valentina Tereskova started her mission in Vostok 6, but in Vostok 5, another astronaut, Valery Byovsky, okay, he was also at that time in the space. And when they come closer, Valentina Tereskova contract with Valery Byovsky and the Russian leader Khrushchev by radio. Here you see Tereskova was communicating with Valery Byovsky and also the Russian leader Khrushchev. Much later in 1977, Tereskova earned a doctorate in engineering from Zhukovsky Air Force Academy. Afterwards, she turned to politics. Okay? And during the Soviet regime, she became one of the presidium members of the Supreme Soviet. For example, you can consider that a minister in Supreme Soviet. Now this living legend is a member of the lower house of Russian legislature. And on her 17th birthday, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin greeted her. You see, Vladimir Putin, he greeted Valentina Tereskova on her 17th birthday. And on that day, Valentina Tereskova expressed her desire to fly to Mars. Here you see Mars, even if it would be a one-way trip. So, dear learners, this is all about Valentina Tereskova. Now, I will do an exercise, and that is question number 5, fill in the blank with appropriate words in gaps. This is very, very important. and for this question 10 numbers will be given for this question. So, see it carefully. Although Tereskova experienced nausea and physical discomfort for much of the flight, she orbited the Earth 48 times and spent almost 3 days in space. Within a single flight, she logged more flight time than the combined times of all American astronauts who had flown before that dates. Tereskova also maintained a flight log and took photographs of the horizon, which were later used to identify aerosol layer within the atmosphere. So, dear learners, that is all for today. So, thank you very much. See you in the next class. Bye.